Welcome to Writers Blockbusters, the show where we treat the final edit of the movie like the script. I'm one of your hosts, Bob Rose, at Thundergrunt Bob on everything except Twitter. Right now, Jamie's going to introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Jamie Nash. I'm a screenwriter. I'm the writer of two Save the Cat books, Save the Cat Writes for TV, and the Save the Cat Beat Sheet Workbook. I've done this so long that I can say that without even thinking and sound like it's scripted.
Jimmy?
I am Jimmy George. I am a screenwriter and script consultant, and you can just find me at my website, scriptbutcher.com.
Hell yeah. Okay, today we're going to talk about the 1993 classic, The Sandlot. But before we get into our talking points, we're going to go around the table and say what this movie means to us, any specific thoughts we have, or whatever we want. And we're definitely going to start with Jamie Nash today, because he has never seen The Sandlot before now.
That's right.
So Jamie, go for it.
That's right. So the interesting thing about this movie, and we had a few that we could do this week because we were going to do a baseball movie because it's baseball season.
Hell yeah.
Kicking off. And this movie, the Orioles have like a Sandlot night and people get all excited and dress up and stuff. And I have no idea. I was like, why? I did like they didn't have a Bad News Bears night or a Major League, which was shot in Baltimore. Well, Major League 2, I guess.
Two. Yeah.
So I was like, I never really understood it. It was a very head scratcher to me because I was a big movie guy and I saw everything, but I didn't see this movie. And honestly, until I watched it last night, I had a completely different understanding of what this movie was. And I talked to a friend of mine that was about my age who also has never seen it and sees every movie known to man. And when I told him what it was about, he was like, oh, that's what it's about? I had no idea. Because honestly, I thought it was more like the movies of the time, like the silly kind of Disney tone, fart jokey kind of, and it has a little bit of that, but not much. I mean, it really isn't. It wasn't the movie, and I Bob, you'd probably know the movies I'm talking about. I mean,
yep.
Those 90s movies that were coming out that were silly and just kind of throwaway and really made for kids. And I skipped most of them. I mean, and I probably haven't seen any of those baseball movies. I thought this was one of those. And that's why I'd never seen it. Otherwise, I probably would have watched it. So that's really why it's, and honestly, until it was a little like, remember when we did It's a Wonderful Life and I'd never watched that, but always assumed it was just the end, just the third. That's kind of what happened with this movie with me. I went into it like, okay, Bob and Jimmy are going to make me watch this fart jokey, whatever. And it's going to be, and it's going to be horrible.
There's not a single fart joke in this movie.
No,
there's not.
I turned it on. And I'm like, it's a period piece. I was like, I was shocked. I was like, I had no idea any of this. Because the only thing I knew about it, honestly, was it was baseball and You're Killing Me Smalls. That's all I know about it. That's it. So I went in with it that clean. And for those reasons, I definitely did like it and understand why it's appreciated and understand why it's elevated above those 90s movies. And just the comparisons that it has, the comparisons I brought up. And honestly, I'll be honest, for me, it's not as good as these movies, but still it's in the ballpark of like Stand By Me, A Christmas Story. It's definitely in the ballpark. It's in the mix. If you put in like a little sampling of this type of movie, those movies all come to mind. And I could see it, and it had a lot of clever things. So I enjoyed it. I'm definitely glad I watched it, and I definitely am glad I now understand why the Orioles have a Sandlot night.
I didn't even know that was a thing that was happening. So
I think they do it
amazing.
all around baseball. Like baseball, all across Major League Baseball, many teams have Sandlot night, in the middle of, I don't know, August when they need to pull some fans in and they can give away a t-shirt and have some of the people from the cast come out or something and people dress up. And
yeah, because all the adults that are going to the games now grew up with it and are probably introducing their kids to it. So
yeah. I know they had one like, might have not been last year, but maybe 2 years ago or something like that.
and not other baseball movies. Just that one. That's really interesting.
Field of Dreams gets a lot of play. Like there was even a
Sure.
Field of Dreams day where they played in the field. They actually played a real game
Yeah,
on that
I
field.
remember that.
And I think
It's
they
so
did that.
cool, man.
Yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
other than that, like I don't remember because again, Bad News Bears is my favorite baseball movie. I don't remember
When I was
that.
a kid, when Greg Olson, you guys remember Greg Olson, the pitcher
Yeah,
for
man.
the Orioles?
The
When
Otter.
he used right.
They used to call him.
When he
The
used to
Otter.
come out at the stadium, they would play Wild Thing.
Wild Thing. Yep.
Just as a reference to Major League. That's
Yeah.
that's what I remember from my childhood.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. I'm glad we watched this one for sure.
Awesome. Jimmy.
So I've said in past baseball we've done A League of Their Own and Bad News Bears, and I'm sure I've mentioned how big of a part baseball played in my life. I ended up I played like 8. I didn't start playing until I was 12, but I ended up playing like 80 games this summer and then getting accepted into a Division III college to play baseball, but I didn't end up going there because I decided I was 5'6" and nobody and not gonna be a pro someday. So it wasn't the path forward for me, but it was like my first love and my first passion, the way that screenwriting is now. And like Scotty, I moved to Baltimore when I was 11 from Virginia Beach, and my dad was on the ships in the Navy like 9 months out of the year, so I had like no male influence in my life, so I had no sports in my life. I didn't know how to play any sports, and when I moved here to where we're in Baltimore, all three of us are recording this in Baltimore, all the kids played sports, and I was like, oh shit. So I was just like Scotty. Like I was laughing because I totally forgot. It's been a long time since I've seen this. I even had the lame plastic glove because like they sold, for anyone who doesn't know, they probably don't do this now, but like in the 80s and the 90s when this movie came out, they sold the plastic glove set where you have like this shitty little plastic ball and this shitty little plastic bat and this shitty little plastic.
I have one.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so like
yeah.
when I went for the first time to play with like the kids in my neighborhood, I couldn't throw. And I had this like 1988 plastic glove that couldn't even catch the ball. So it is so authentic. Like when that happens in this movie, it's a real thing. So anyway, I identified with Scotty's thing, and I absolutely bonded with kids through baseball. Oddly enough, I had kind of forgotten about that until I watched this. I was like, holy shit. But yeah, so this movie was something me and my friends watched over and over when I was a kid, and this was the time when it was 1993, so we no longer had the Betamax that my dad insisted upon getting. And at this point we had the VHS, and we wore that tape out. So yeah.
Only because it came up in conversation this week with me with some of my nephews and stuff, and I was explaining this deep dive into wiffle ball. Okay, did you guys remember when the Fat Albert bat was around? Does that mean anything to you, or was that
the one that was like
this big?
It was big and red,
super wide.
Yes,
the
red,
absolutely.
Yep,
Yeah.
Jamie, I owned one.
Okay,
I had one. Yeah,
me too.
So I was trying to explain that to my nephews and stuff, and I was like, oh, they don't know what Fat Albert is, first of all, and
yeah, they don't have the reference.
It was branded. It was branded by Fat Albert. It was a license play, but it became known as that even when the license play went away. And it used to come with a ball and that big fat bat.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and my friends and I and to bounce off of that, I actually ultimately ended up playing, with my friends, just the friend side of this, not like the league side of this. But I ended up playing wiffle ball way more than baseball because in the 90s, those Sandlots stopped being a thing, and like we would play wiffle ball like in backyards and
backyard wiffle ball.
Yeah, backyard wiffle ball. So
I played backyard wiffle ball like every day of my life up to I was
Yeah,
12 years
dude.
old. I mean, it was just what you did.
The thing about
right?
wiffle ball is you could go to 11 with how hard you're playing, and
Absolutely. You
it
can
can't
hit
do any
somebody in
damage.
the head and you're
It doesn't
fine.
matter.
At some
Yeah.
point, I traded up for basketball. It was probably when I was around 12 years old. It's somewhere
Yeah.
around that era.
Yeah, but the one thing this movie reminded me of is like, oh my god, like the number of I just like unlocked this wave of memories. The number of times I awkwardly would like climb a fence into a neighbor's yard for the ball, and you're like, are they going to yell at us?
Yeah, it's actually part of my talking points, but like everything from this, like it's almost mythic. Like everybody has these what's the word? Not tropes. What's the anyway? But everybody's childhood has these things. They're not the specific Sandlot.
Just
Like
say mythic childhood tropes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I had a basketball court that I still go back to this day that I used to play on like every single day. And it's kind of sad to me because now the baskets are gone. They like took them down because they don't want basketball players there. It was at
Yeah,
an old elementary school. But I go there and it's weird because it's kind of like when I hear like the Sandlot's still there at the end, and it's kind of emotional. I have that too. It's that basketball court. And my next door neighbor, we used to play wiffle ball in my yard. My next door neighbor had this tiny dog that was legendary. Like, don't go, if the ball goes over there, we have to leave it. And it was a tiny, tiny dog, but she was kind of a cat lady. She was a dog lady, but kind of a cat lady.
Right.
And she was the type that if you stepped on her yard, she would run out the door, her and her husband, and yell at you because you put a foot. Like one time I mowed her lawn like an inch over, and she came out and made a big deal of it. It was
she's what the kids thought James Earl Jones was.
Yeah,
she was,
yeah.
and we always thought she was always kind of peeking out from behind the window watching us.
Absolutely, dude.
But her dog, her little tiny dog, grew to mythic proportions to the point where when me and my friends get together, we still remember the dog. Its name was Dax. His name was Dax, and it was a little terrier. And one of my earliest memories, not earliest, but when I was probably 4 or 5 or 6, some of the bigger kids came to play wiffle ball, and one of the kids ran over there and got bit by the dog. And that's where I learned about rabies and rabies shots and all this other craziness. Right. And then one day we were playing in the backyard, and the dog broke free on the leash. And it jumped on one of my friends and was like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah." And it really didn't do anything. I think it just wanted to play. So we had that dog. We had to leave the ball. If it ever goes there, we never stepped on that lawn. And the ball would go there all the time. We just leave it. And she just take them, like, and throw them in the trash. This is my next door neighbor, by the way.
So, I mean, really, Jamie's relating to this movie way more than we would have ever assumed.
That's so great.
If anything.
Yeah. And baseball was everything to me when I was a kid.
Right.
I think we talked about it, but baseball cards, the Orioles, until I saw Star Wars, it was the only thing going on. And then when I saw Star Wars, it became that and baseball a little bit.
Yeah.
But the weird thing about that era, because I was born in the 70s, so I didn't hit the 60s, but I kind of know what was going on in the 60s too. It was very similar to what was going on in my childhood in the 70s. And even like, you know how nowadays you get a kid that doesn't like sports that probably would never play wiffle ball or something? Back then, even the kid who didn't like sports would play wiffle ball. It was,
well, speaking of,
because there was nothing else to do. Yeah.
That would be me.
Okay. There you go.
I have to say I can't deny that transition, because I played baseball as a kid and I fucking hated playing sports as a classic fat kid and fat guy. Well, I just hated it. It was just something you did, right? It was like,
yeah,
you're a kid, you play sports, you're part of a sports team.
You were thrust into it.
Right. Playing baseball was like a requirement of being around here, at least.
Yes.
Of being part of a young boy's life. And I did it, and I loved my friends and stuff in it, but the whole time my parents were like, they knew. I could ask my mom to this day, and she's like, yeah, we knew that you didn't care at all about sports whatsoever. But I did, even as a kid, love sports movies. That was the weird distinction of it. I love sports movies to this day. I haven't watched like an actual sporting event in 30 years. Like I haven't even when I went to a Super Bowl party, I won't pay attention. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't interest me whatsoever. But I fucking love sports movies. It's really weird. Anyway, so I was gonna say I'm everything. I wrote down some stuff I was gonna say, but Jamie kind of steamrolled all of it. It's fine. I'm not mad about that. But like it's the 90s kids baseball movie that transcends the time period it was released. Like completely. We can say that safely now. Jamie's going to games and they're having nights. Okay. So like it's not me just saying this. I'm not just throwing my ass out there. I absolutely, if anyone listens to this podcast, there's absolutely no doubt that Bob Rose loves Rookie of the Year, Little Big League, Angels in the Outfield.
Yes.
I love all those movies. And those are the movies Jamie was kind of pointing to when he said he was afraid that, you know, that's what this was going to be. This might have one scene that feels like it's from those movies, maybe the cake. I would think like that's like the 90s creeping in if it did, you know. But the Sandlot's different than all of them. It is. It was aimed at our demographic, but like, you know, it stands like beside all of America's greatest baseball movies, in my opinion. You know, it stands next to Field of Dreams, League of Their Own, Bull Durham, The Natural, you name it. The Sandlot's there. And it's weird because it's the one that was for me and Jimmy when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the movies that were aimed directly at us when we were kids don't feel like they earned their place in that like pantheon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't just mean baseball movies, just like Jamie, you mentioned Stand By Me, or even like the Goonies, or, you know, whatever, the cultural staying power. Like, you know, Rookie of the Year is great, but it doesn't stand like that. It's great, but it doesn't.
And I hope we
stand
do
like
get
that.
to do it someday.
I would love to do Rookie of the Year if Jamie would let us. But but
weirdly, I think I've seen that one.
It's directed by Daniel Stern.
Is that the one where the guy?
It's where the kid get his arm,
the robotic arm. Yeah, I think I saw that.
No, it's not robotic.
Not robotic.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's super.
It's a magic arm, Jamie.
Magic arm.
It's a magic arm,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Anyway, like that's great. It's a great 90s movie. It doesn't stand. It's not. I don't know if I could call it a great like film on the level of what everything I just listed. But like, yeah, like I feel like that's why this movie is. We try to choose movies with like one thing interesting about them, and I feel like that's the interesting thing about The Sandlot is it's an important piece of Americana at this point. You know, it's the 90s looking back at the 60s. I would say it's as important as something like American Graffiti or Happy Days. It's whatever classic nostalgia throwback you choose to compare it to. The Sandlot is in that grouping of like important Americana, important piece of cinema. And with that said, even if it wasn't, it's still a movie I absolutely love. And anytime we've ever done a classic episode with like Wayne's World or Jurassic Park or something, I've said there's a lot of movies that I'll put on in the background just to feel comfort. This is definitely one of them. I've watched The Sandlot in the past year, maybe 3 times in the background. Like just in the background. I'm not like looking at the TV. It's just playing while I'm working. But this is a movie where just the sound of it, I'm so familiar with from God, the amount of times I've seen it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was just trying to give it its flowers because it really has earned it, right?
I think what surprised me about this movie was I thought those Oriole nights were ironic. Honestly, I thought, oh, this movie's so stupid or bad, people like it or something. Right. That's what I always assumed. I was like, really? I don't know what it is. So, and
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I think it was ironic, but I learned it was.
It's kind of Jamie's expanding his culture.
That's right. That's right.
Well, this is good because this is definitely like a Jimmy and Bob. We're so separated by so few years, but we're separated by like that time period, Jamie, where it's like perfectly in the switch of generation.
Yeah.
You know, like you missed a lot of stuff that was like, you know, intimate to me and Jimmy.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And vice versa, right?
It's like this is when I was shifting gears into like art house, You know, it was
Right. Yeah.
Tarantino was showing up on the scene, and Kevin Smith, and for the indie scene and the Sundance scene. And I was going to see like Welcome to the Dollhouse at the Charles.
Yeah,
You know,
very different experience.
I wasn't going to see the Sandlot.
Todd Solondz movie.
The Sandlot was 93. I was still like fully in on this type of movie by the time Space Jam came out.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Man.
That's the age difference we're talking about. When Space Jam came out, I was like, fucking A. I was like totally into Space Jam.
And this is like a 10-year period where I probably didn't see a kids movie. But then when like Pixar started to show up on the scene, I know they were kids movies, but I thought they were awesome. And I started to go see that kind of stuff, you know?
Well, there's just a whole discussion that we don't have to have here, but it's like kids movies that respect their audience versus kids movies that are for kids.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Down intentionally.
Yeah. And there's a whole discussion about that, which we're not going to do, but those are two very specific things. And it's always like the movies like where you watch younger kids like talk about older movies and they're like, this was for kids. And those are usually the movies that stand up, like The Never-Ending Story or something. Where they're like, wait a minute, they had kids watch the scene of this fucking horse drowning. You know what I mean? Like, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, and like even this guy's, we're gonna get into it in a minute, but Radio Flyer, like
the same director, right?
Yeah, Jill and I were just talking about that last night. About oh my god, like,
I watched the Radio Flyer so much when I was a kid.
Me too.
And to think of what that movie's fucking about.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yes. It respected the kids' audience so much.
So much. Whenever people talk about like where's Elijah Wood from, like they say an actor's from something. That's what I always think.
Yeah, I mean, God, and
to me, Elijah Wood's the kid
soon
from
after that.
The Good Son too.
Jesus Christ,
the fucking Good Son. You killed Mr. Highway. Sorry. No one's gonna know that.
Yeah, everybody who's listening is like, what are they talking about?
Good Son? Are you fucking kidding me? Anyway, sorry, Jamie. Jamie, have you seen The Good Son?
I've seen The Good Son. Yeah.
Okay.
Making sure we're not completely.
No, honestly, if you ask me what I remember Elijah Wood from, it's Deep Impact. I don't know why.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. So I skipped.
You mean other than his adult?
It was the first time I was aware of like Elijah Wood. Yeah.
As an actor.
Yeah. It was a Deep Impact. Even though all the movies.
Should have said Back to the Future 2.
I don't even. He was in that.
He's the kid. He's the kid playing the video games. The Marty.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Anyway, okay. The nostalgia's thick with this one.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the box office, Jamie? And budget? Box office.
Yeah.
Budget.
The budget is $7 million. I just looked it up. Okay. And the box office is 34 million internationally. 32 of that was domestic.
Okay.
And just to put this in context, do my favorite thing.
You got to.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah. 1993.
Yeah.
Sandlot is the number 50 ranked movie.
Okay.
In 1993. Just to give you some examples of what's immediately around it, The Age of Innocence comes in at number 51. So it beat out Martin Scorsese, right? The Cop and a Half was 52.
Oh, geez.
Right in front of it at 49. I'm surprised this movie isn't higher up there. Was Hard Target.
Shit.
Fucking A.
Just to give an example of the top 10 movies of 1993. Number one is go for it. What'd you say?
I was gonna say like the fact that it was so low.
Yeah,
it's like this movie's so there's fucking nights at the stadium to honor this movie, and it was number 50 something at the box office.
That's that power of the VHS, man.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was well above it that year.
Yeah, right.
Far above. By the way, The Good Son, number 28 on this list. Compared
that was the same year? Oh, shit.
Same year. Yes.
I didn't even know that was the same year.
Me neither. Yes.
Cool Runnings, number 16. It doesn't get a night at the bobsled stadium. I'm sorry. I've been.
There's no way though.
The bobsled stadium.
You can't tell me that at the Olympics bobsled whatever they don't mention Cool Runnings every now and then.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Come on.
For some reason, I think the Jamaican bobsled team is like angry about it or something. I don't know.
Oh, really?
About
I
the
don't
way
know.
it's
I
represented.
feel like I've heard some
the
whisperings.
white savior stuff.
Yeah, there's some problem.
There's
with
probably
movie.
that. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So anyway, the top 10 movies, 1993. Number 1 is
Go for it.
Jurassic Park.
Oh,
I
yeah,
thought, in my mind, 94 is Jurassic Park.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked you. Yeah, June 11th of 1993.
Wow.
The Fugitive is number 2. So Jurassic Park was 338 million. The Fugitive at 176, so a major drop off. And then The Firm, which is pretty shocking to think a movie like that would be number 3.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, killing it.
Best like porn title versus Hollywood title ever.
Sleepless in Seattle, Miss Doubtfire, Indecent Proposal, In the Line of Fire, Aladdin, Cliffhanger, and A Few Good Men.
I feel like we could do every single one of those.
Oh, yeah.
And they would be excellent episodes. Every single one of those. Damn.
And the only one we've done is Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. They all seem like good episodes. Every single one. The Fugitive. One that screenwriters constantly break down.
Yes,
you know,
we've definitely referenced it on the show.
The Firm was kind of the best of that genre.
The John Grisham,
during that time.
Yep.
Sleepless in Seattle, one of the best of its genre.
Yeah.
Fucking Cliffhanger, man.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah. Rennie Harlan.
Rennie Harlan.
Harlan.
No, it really is. It really is a banger list here. Aladdin, Miss Doubtfire. I mean, these seem like.
Dude, Aladdin is Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, who we have quoted 50
constantly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite of that era of Disney as well. I love that movie. Yeah, I don't know. It's a great list. Great 10, top 10.
And this is number what again?
And we haven't talked to
we're about to get to it. But what you said it was 50 what?
It's number 50, exactly.
That's so nuts though if you think about what this movie means. Yeah. Remember the 25th anniversary a few years ago? It was nuts.
Yep.
There was like so many Sandlot reunions and everything, and there were stadium celebrations all around the country for this movie that was at 50.
Yeah, I mean, number 34 on this list is another movie that at the time was kind of a blip, but seems well loved going on, is Hocus Pocus. You know, kind of
right.
Has a weird, similar kind of vibe.
93 was a killer year. In
93 was pretty great. Was 93? When did Schindler's List come out?
Schindler's List is in 93, but it's December. So
Spielberg did those back to back.
It didn't make much money in 93. I think it made a lot more money in 94.
Mm-hmm.
So it's further down this list. I can't find it. I know it's on here. It's like December 15th of 93.
I didn't know it came out in December.
Yeah, it was a Christmas. It was one of those right before the Oscars, but then after the Oscars and all during Oscar season, it made a ton of money.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's below Sandlot on this list, but overall it's far above.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. Jamie, who wrote this shit?
Okay. Hold on. Let me click a tab over to help you out. Even though it's just one person this time. I want to check their credits out.
There's two, right?
The's two. I thought there was another guy.
No, you're right. It's David Mickey Evans and Robert Gunter. And David Mickey Evans is the writer-director. As we mentioned, he eventually went on to do Radio Flyer. And just to give you a feel for his credits, before and after this, it's, let's see.
Yeah, I think Radio Flyer was right before this.
Yeah, I think Radio Flyer was his first movie.
Right. Radio Flyer was his first movie in 1992. The Sandlot. Then he did First Kid. Which is kind of what I thought this movie was going to be.
Right.
And then he did other movies like I thought this was going to be, Beethoven's Third and Beethoven's Fourth.
Man.
And not that the Beethoven movies are horrible, but they're a different thing than I expected.
It's him doing a job. Let's just say that.
Absolutely. Yes. And good for him. If only we could get that job.
He did a thing called My Teacher, My Friend 2, Barely Legal, Wilder Days, The Sandlot 2 he did in 2005.
He did do The Sandlot.
Yeah, he did. And he wrote it too.
And he he did the final season. I don't know what that is. Do you guys have any
Nope.
recollection? 2007, which is probably a baseball movie.
Oh man, that Ace Ventura.
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective Jr.
Oh man,
A TV movie. Tranced and Smitty. It's funny. I'm surprised I haven't worked with this guy in Nickelodeon because he seems like he seems like the kind of guy,
yeah.
like,
Where's the
like Savage Steve
David
Holland.
Mickey Evans, Adventures of a Teenage Dragon Slayer 2?
Yeah. Feels like he's working in my space.
Santa Hunters 2, baby.
Santa Hunters 2, exactly. He could do it. We could turn it into a baseball movie. Santa Ball or something. The Snow Lot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, I love First Kid, and it's definitely the movie that I wouldn't force Jamie to watch. It's like that. It's that type of movie. But Sandlot and Radio Flyer, those two are stone cold classics in my opinion.
So good.
I
what
don't know.
a hell of a back-to-back. I mean,
That's
you're
such
done.
a back-to-back.
That's all you
man.
need.
That's all you need. Then just fucking quit. You don't need anything else.
And I don't know as
Just
much
like,
about
hit
Robert.
2 home runs, right?
I don't know as much about Robert Gunter, but I'll give you his credits. He started with Journey to the Center of the Earth, a TV movie in 1993, went immediately to The Sandlot, but then pretty much worked with the other writer. He did My Teacher, My Friend 2, which The Sandlot 2, and The Sandlot Heading Home. Oh, I'm sorry.
They're just characters for those two.
Yeah, they're just characters. So I guess he just did. But then My Teacher, My Friend was one that he also wrote. Co-wrote,
and that we know of, right? As you experienced, Jamie.
Oh, absolutely. These are just the landed credits,
right?
Yeah, that eventually ended up
endless scripts that never became movies.
Honestly, and I think this is true of most people in the 90s. Maybe people now are a little different because IMDb and all stuff, but most screenwriters from that era, unless they're the biggest, millionaires with big time houses in LA or something, most of them, this is kind of what their careers look like. It's like 3 or 4 solid credits and then no other credits. And you'd think like, oh, they bombed out. They could never, match The Sandlot. And that partially that's true, but partially it's just the fact that they probably wrote 50 million things and never got a credit. Yep.
Also, just to have made 2 great movies is a miracle. It's like
absolutely
make one movie that people will blow. If he just did The Sandlot and literally nothing else, that's a miracle.
Look,
that's a miracle.
Absolutely.
So,
being a Save the Cat guy, like Blake Snyder, a very 90s guy, he gets a lot of heat. Like, the guy wrote Save the Cat, Stop Her, My Mom Will Shoot. Ha ha, we should trust this guy. Yeah, he wrote Blank Check. That's the worst movie. And I'm like, dudes, I wish I could write Blank Check. I wish I had.
Blank Check is not a bad 90s kids movie. It's a pretty good 90s kids movie.
Yeah, you could only wish. You people out there making fun can only wish you'll have one movie that's known well enough to get the ridicule. Stop Her, My Mom Will Shoot.
Yeah.
It's
Sly. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's
look. If I had to ridicule Blank Check, it's only that it should have been like $10 million and not $1 million.
Yeah.
Even back when I was a kid, I was like, just $1 million. It's like not. I was even criticizing it as a kid. I was just like, that's not enough to go nuts. You know what I mean?
You greedy bastard, Bob.
Yes.
Damn.
I was like, it should have been. I think Richie Rich came out not long after that.
Yeah.
It was like the difference of Richie Rich versus Blank
Yeah,
Check.
he was buying robots and flying cars and stuff. It's not fair.
It's a really hard comparison there.
It's a hard comparison.
Okay, so let's talk story DNA and plot structure, because this is a weird movie a little bit, right? It's got some weirdness to it if you really put it under a microscope.
Yeah, I put this on there, but I mainly put it on there like I've been doing lately, just to make Jamie do it.
Sure.
Because I had kind of forgotten that this was not your standard Hollywood cheeseburger until I saw
it. That's the first thing I thought when you said it, Jimmy. First thing I thought was like, we're going to definitely be talking about that it's not all about the dog.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
because
so
the trailer. So when it's probably been about, unlike Bob, who's been watching it in the background, I mean, it's been a decade at least since I've seen this, and in my memory, the dog stuff happens right away. Like when they lost that
Right.
first ball, I was like, "Oh shit, it's on!"
No, dude.
Yes.
This is like Rocky, man. It didn't. It's like 47 minutes in or 50
Yes.
minute in until
Yeah. So I don't know.
Till the ball goes
so if
over.
you're out there, I think it's worth mentioning. Watch the trailer.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the trailer promises the arch plot Hollywood cheeseburger experience. It's heavily focused on the hunt to get their ball back, and barely scratches the "this is actually going to be like Stand By Me" feel. So I wanted to talk about that, and like I think that's the most interesting thing about this. So I popped in there the IMDb log line, and maybe we can start there.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go for it. And remember, this is like, as Jamie said in the past, who knows who wrote this log line, where it came from, the marketing department, who knows? It's a good like sample of like what they are trying to promise to the general audience. Yeah.
Okay. In the summer of 1962, a new kid in town is taken under the wing of a young baseball prodigy and his rowdy team, resulting in many adventures.
Yeah.
That doesn't even mention a dog.
Doesn't mention a dog. But it also doesn't mention your story DNA, right, Jamie?
Well, I mean, it depends on what the story DNA is, I guess. But yeah, not really. Not really.
It doesn't mention the ball.
And so story DNA, as if you've been listening to this podcast, if this is your first time, if you're just coming for the Sandlot, what we mean
it's the biggest draw ever.
Yeah. What we mean by story DNA is stories and log lines in particular have these elements that you need to have, and basically they boil down to hero, goal, obstacle, stakes. And if you put hero, goal, obstacle, stakes in a sentence, it's kind of like, will the hero overcome the obstacle or obstacles and achieve the goal, or will the horrible thing, the stakes, happen? That's it in a nutshell. So if you remember that, that's your story DNA. It's kind of the first thing you should come up with before you tackle your story, to kind of know the story you're telling, so you don't get confused and you have a focus and things like that. Stories like this, there's two debatable ways to look at this story. One is that the goal is more nebulous. It doesn't have what we call a photo finish, or what I call a photo finish, where you could take a picture of it at the end. So you could take a picture of a boy retrieving his baseball from the monster's lair. I could take a picture of that, but I can't take a picture of a boy enjoying his summer and finding friends. I can kind of take a picture of it, but when you take a picture,
there's a picture in this movie, but it's still not exactly what we're talking about.
It's abstract.
It's an abstraction, right?
Because it's not necessarily happening on the last day of summer. It could have happened on the first day of summer. It's just the memory of that journey. It's not the picture of the finish line. Like, what is the finish? That in some ways, that summer goes forever. In some ways, it's his life with his friends or something like that. Or you could take a picture of it in the last day of summer, but
you could argue before the ball goes over the fence, he's already kind of achieved that.
Yes.
He's already been accepted, and he's friends with these guys. They care enough to help him out to get the ball back.
Right.
Yep.
So like I said, there's two ways of arguing it. There's one way to say, after a boy is forced outside from his mom, he must try to maintain shaky relationships with a new group of kids and assimilate into being part of their baseball team or something like that. You could do that. You could do that, or you could kind of say, oh, that's all the first act, and the story doesn't kick in until the ball is lost. And then it becomes a story about children trying to retrieve a ball, which, as you see, because the trailer didn't know how to market this, they were like, I don't know. So they just skipped to that part. They're just like, we don't know what to do. Let's skip to, because we don't know we can't really describe the story. It's more like, hey, a kid's going to find friends. Because and honestly, in a story like this, what it is, it's a collection of stories,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
bunch of mini vignettes that happen over the course of a summer that eventually get focused around the midpoint on a single hero goal obstacle stakes. And you know what this is very similar to? Slow burn horror movies.
Yeah.
I have a new book that's going to be announced pretty soon, a Save the Cat Writes for Horror book. And in that, I have a whole section on slow burn horror. And this is very specific to what I talk about. There are a lot of horror movies, and the one that pops into my head is Alien. That's really similar to this, in that the marketing for Alien is about the midpoint on. It's about trapped in a spaceship with a monster. These people must survive.
Right.
It's not about a weird derelict signal on a planet. They go, but that's what happens for the first 50 minutes. Some guy has a medical issue. We don't know what that is. Which is all,
Or even like a woman fighting for authority and reason in space against her crew. You know what I mean? Like you could even argue that.
Yep.
even
That's
that.
not marketed. That wasn't marketed.
Even that. The Exorcist, for example, we watched The Exorcist on this, and The Exorcist doesn't show up till the end, right? It's kind of a movie dealing with, like, her daughter is taking a turn. Does she go to medical science? Does she go to religion? Does she do all this? She does all that. But the way The Exorcist is kind of pitched, the title, the thing, is The Exorcist. There's going to be an exorcism. That doesn't even come to toward the end of the movie. So a lot of slow burn horror movies actually have the same problem. And I'm always, my thing in the book is, if you're having trouble writing a log line based on all the rules I've given you, you're probably in a slow burn horror movie. And you probably want to cheat your log line to be the midpoint. And there's different ways to look at it in horror movies. I think it's different than here, because in a horror movie, I call it, if you know Save the Cat, I call the fun and games section the fun and games and debate section, because it just kind of stretches out is there a monster? Are we in danger? And it kind of until the midpoint, and then it kicks in. Oh, we're in danger. And then that's when the story DNA kicks in. In this movie, I don't think that's what's going on. It's not really a debate like, will these people be my friends? I think he's kind of, as soon as he catches that ball, he's in the club, right?
Yeah.
So I just think it's like, we're in a new fish out of water. A boy who wasn't part of the baseball group is now part of the baseball group. We're going to live a summer with him. There's going to be multiple stories. And then at the fun and games, we're going to kick into the most intriguing logline-y part of the story. And by the way, and Jimmy has some tidbits about like the behind the scenes and stuff. If you read why this guy wrote this, it's semi-autobiographical in that he pulled pieces of his life and then exaggerated them. But the impetus for this story was they lost a ball over a fence, like I did as a kid, like many people did as a kid. There was a big dog on the other side. His brother went after his real life brother went after the ball to retrieve it, and the dog actually did some real damage to his brother.
Yep.
And that's the real life story, right? But he wanted to tell that story essentially. Like that's the nugget that drove him to the story.
And there's some actual horror there, right? There is. Some legit stakes.
Squints is a horror storyteller, basically, right?
Yeah, no, that's when you guys brought this up to put on the list. I instantly was like, "Oh shit!" There's a praise of the killer speech, which we're not going to go into. And then Bob was like, "It's like one of the best ones."
Yeah,
because it's like playing off of those speeches.
It is.
Almost.
It's playing with that. Absolutely.
And it. It's almost like a kid that's inspired by those things. Even the title, The Sandlot, sounds like a Stephen King novel. It does. It really does. I was like, that sounds. I could totally see the Sandlot.
The horror trailer of this now.
Yeah.
I mean, and also just like the portrayal of the beast. There's literal notes of horror movies all over that.
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
Even like Jurassic Park almost, like the shots of the shadow and stuff.
The
and the roars.
drooling maw.
Right.
Like, just like Alien.
Right. There's absolutely horror in this movie.
Yeah.
Well, intentionally.
intentionally playing with it from the kid's perspective. Yeah.
For
Right,
sure,
right.
for sure. So
Yeah.
so yeah, and in some ways this story might be closer to when we did the Fablemans and we talked
Mhm.
about that
Right.
the Fablemans, and Fablemans is a similar thematic, or I don't know what to say. It's in the same ballpark, no pun intended. Even though it's one's for a different audience than this, they're kind of different audiences, but they're in similar ballparks in some
Mhm.
ways. And this kind of reminds me of the Fableman structure, except the Fablemans I don't think locks into a midpoint. Like, here we go, we're on the surfboard, let's ride the wave.
You
You know,
couldn't make that
yeah.
trailer for the Fablemans like you
No.
could for this.
No.
There's no trailer.
No, I think the trailer for the Fablemans is Steven Spielberg's life, and that's it. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Right.
that's the only selling point. David Lynch is in it too. Watch it.
Right.
But yeah, this has similar things. It just locks into that midpoint. So anyway, it's an interesting thing, and it's honestly, I think, why in the '90s especially, and even today, why it does hint why you should agonize over story DNA. Not that it's a problem in this movie. It's done with intentionality. You couldn't make this movie by adding some artificial goal. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I don't even know what the goal would be, but I'm trying to think, like, if you don't make that baseball team, we're sending you away to military camp or something. I don't know what it would
The
be,
Bill
some
and
weird
Ted.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be some weird thing. I don't
Or
even
you had
think you can
the
make
rival team. There was the rival team in this movie, which normally would have been the big
Yep.
showdown.
I love
And it's
that.
nothing.
And that's just one
It's nothing.
scene. Yep.
Just one thing.
It's a mini plot. It's one of the mini plots.
It's-
Yep.
Yep.
Because what's interesting about this movie is, like, I'm not even sure that this movie's a sports movie. In
Yeah,
some ways.
I almost put
Arguably,
that
yeah.
on there.
Yeah.
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 It's for the love of the sport rather
It-
than the
But
yeah.
it doesn't even do deep dives into the sport. Like, Babe
Yeah.
Ruth is such low hanging fruit. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
Yep.
it doesn't seem like it's made by, like, the person that loves baseball. You know what I mean? Not to say the person doesn't love baseball. It doesn't feel like it's made by the baseball nerd.
That's true.
It feels like somebody that,
Compared to Bad News Bears, where there's all these situational things that come up that are so
right, that you're
unique
like,
and to the sport.
yeah, like, they got that right. Like
Yeah.
Oliver Stone doing Platoon, and you're like, he was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's also, like, from the perspective of the kids, they don't even care about keeping score in the movie.
Exactly. That's
and
not
stuff.
the point.
When we get to the game where they beat the other team, they don't even show us much baseball when they
No.
have the opportunity to.
No, it's
so
about
it's
the
not
little
concerned with
character
that.
things. Yeah.
It's not concerned with the baseball game whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think that's all I have for that.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's just I love that it works so well despite all of these unconventional approaches to its subject matter. Yeah.
And it's pretty funny that this is the movie that stadiums are having nights for.
Yes.
And we're here saying it's not really a baseball movie. It's pretty
Yeah.
funny. When there's so many movies about baseball that are, like, intimately concerned with the game itself.
Yeah.
Like, think about the end of Rookie of the Year. It's, you know what I mean? Like, that is,
Yeah. Like,
that's
one
a
thing
fucking
that struck
baseball movie.
one thing that struck me was how the movie doesn't even romanticize the big finish, which is like Benny stealing home is such a unique moment in the sport, and they don't even and then he stole home, and
Yeah.
they don't even mention it. Like, it's
Yeah.
like,
I think, honestly, watching that, I watched it on replay. I think he was out. I think he was
oh,
out.
was he?
I think it was a bad call.
Either way, he got it. Okay. Rite of passage, nostalgia, coming of age. Let's talk about that. This is nostalgia is a huge part of this movie.
Yeah. And part of it I've already dipped into a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
Much like I say this isn't a baseball movie, a lot of these aren't even writing instructions. These are more musings about the writing. So
Sure.
take it for what it is. Like, because movies that came to mind with this for me were Stand By Me. And
Mhm.
you know what's another movie that really, this just rang my bell when I was watching this, that hardly anybody knows, but you guys will know. Lady in White.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, when I was watching this, Lady in White was just, like, alarming in my head for some reason. I don't know why. It was just like, because that's a movie that takes place in the 1960s. It's kids. It's a horror
Yeah.
movie, of course. Um,
Yeah, horror.
and if
Hard not to think about Monster Squad too for me.
Monster Squad, it would be a good one.
Yeah.
Stranger Things in some ways. I mean, in a weird way, or It even. But the one thing I'd say about this movie, and I think this might be part of its timelessness, is it's doing nostalgia in a different way. I don't think it's doing nostalgia like, hey, look, it's a Rubik's Cube at all. Like I don't think it has a moment of that. Like
it's not doing Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah. Remember this from the 1960s? Wink, wink, which is how we do nostalgia now, right?
Yes.
It's all
member berries.
It's all member berry. Remember He-Man? He was cool. You know, that it's that stuff. But in 1960, I don't remember hardly anything that I'd look at in this movie and go, wow. And then I wasn't born in 1960.
I'll be honest. I thought this movie took place in the 1950s for most of my life until I looked that up maybe 10 years ago. And I was like, wait, it's in the 60s? This doesn't look like the 60s.
I can't say I would have known unless,
we didn't exist in then, so I wouldn't have known.
Yeah. Well,
it's all very subtle, like the 4th of July neighborhood gatherings, like intimate. And,
so this very easily could have been the 70s for me. It looked like my 70s childhood.
Sure.
It didn't look different at all from my 70s childhood. And that's what I wanted to touch on with this nostalgic aspect with it, is that I think it's nostalgic for childhood. Like when I said said the Platoon thing, like, Oliver Stone, when Vietnam vets watched Platoon, another movie we should do one day, they were like, oh, only somebody that was there would know that we used the sheets of the helicopter metal to line the foxholes. Like, he did weird stuff like that in there, right? And he was popping things in there that only he would know, that, most of us would even miss, right? I don't feel like this director did that at all with the 60s, but I think he did it with childhood. And that's where, when we talked about the dog, the ball, baseball, the pool, the pool scene, just all
the
these,
fair,
the rides at the fair, all this stuff. I don't know anything about the 60s really. All that stuff rings true for my childhood, and probably a lot of childhoods up to a certain point.
So American childhood,
there's a weird timelessness,
Americana,
to this movie. Yeah, the nostalgia isn't the time frame, and I think there's a lesson to be learned there that you could miss if you're watching Stranger Things or Ready Player One or something like that. I think there's something instructional there that I can't quite describe in words.
It's like, instead of genre expectations, it's like time setting of the character's life expectations.
It's almost like hitting
there's no point in this movie where they're watching television,
right,
and something from that time period is playing to prove it's that time
period.
The moon
landing.
Except maybe the Wolfman, but that's even not from the 60s.
It's not from its era.
Yeah. Right, it's not. Yeah.
I would even go so far as to say that was the reason. I know I kind of made fun of it for Babe Ruth, like a low-hanging fruit. But I'd say that's why, because you could easily, like, my dad, he was a Mickey Mantle guy or something like that. And I'm sure in the 60s, I don't know who it would be exactly, but I'm sure there was somebody much cooler that they'd idolize.
The player of the moment. Yes.
But the Babe transcends time because he's like a myth, and again, so they picked something that was outside. Like, if it was me and I was writing about my childhood, it would be like Reggie Jackson or Eddie Murray or somebody like that.
Mine would be Cal Ripken.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this is much to speaking of the trailer and me as a kid, because I remember seeing the trailer as a kid and wanting to go see this movie. The Babe Ruth sales point was a big deal for me, even as a kid. I knew about Babe Ruth.
Right.
And I knew he was the low-hanging fruit, as Jamie puts it.
Yeah.
But to me, that name meant something, and they were selling it to kids with that name. So that's how big and significant that name is, right?
It's like, there's sort of a brilliance to it, because even as much as me and as old as I am and as, story nerd as I am, like when I watched the beginning of this movie and he goes, the most legendary thing in sports was when Babe Ruth pointed to the wall, and it's like, come on, that's it. We couldn't come up with something better for an opening image. But then on the flip side, after watching the whole thing and consuming the whole thing and feeling the timelessness of it, I was like, okay. When I watched it the second time to do my notes, I was like, oh, I get what you're doing here. I see why you had to do that.
Yeah.
And I sort of got it. But anyway, it more impressed upon me. It was a lesson learned to me because we are in an era where nostalgia became the most popular thing or something. It seemed like the biggest thing.
Yes. It's a crutch almost.
Yeah. What movie did
Yeah.
we just do? Didn't we just do a nostalgia movie?
Electric State.
Electric State.
Oh,
yes.
duh. Electric
Yeah.
State. Yeah.
It does everything Electric State did wrong.
Right.
So in the way, I guess this will be a place to bring up what I said earlier in the chat. As you're saying, it's like nostalgic for childhood and not for the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
That relates to the dog being this mythic monster.
Yes.
And how kids would see that
Yes.
in childhood. And it's in the arc of how they change over how the beast becomes a real dog over time.
Yes. Yeah.
It's nostalgic for when they could believe in something as silly as
their
the
innocence.
Their innocence and and when they believed in, or when the director or writer believed in more mythic type things like Babe Ruth, because the end of the movie, much like Hercules is shown to be just a dog, you could argue that the end of the movie takes the myth out of George Herman Ruth with with the discussion they have
James
with
Earl Jones.
George right. They give him a name too. Hercules gets his name, and
he's just a man.
He's just a man. Yeah. And at the beginning he says, he's more than a man but less than a god. And they find out he's actually just a man. So
I think there is something to be said about that nostalgia of childhood, that when you're a child, and I have great memories of this, that everything is high stakes and life or death,
right.
Even though they're the silliest of things. So just like me, when we played wiffle ball and that little dog was over there, it was like death to walk on that lawn, even though it was a dog. If you saw this dog, you would laugh how small it was. And everything was like that. It was all, and I think that's something Stephen King kind of taps into in some of his Stand By Me and stuff like that. Though what he does is he actually gives kind of life or death things to it. They kind of elevate it. But I think everything is life or death. Everything is huge. All these moments are in Technicolor, and that is that is one more nostalgic thing that this movie does in the telling that's actually nostalgic of how I remember my childhood in a weird sort of way.
It's also in the nitty gritty of like how we talked about where it stands, or how I talked about it, Jamie sort of. The silliness of them versus the beast, because like a lot of that stuff is silly in how it was shown. Like the physics of it don't work. A lot of it doesn't make any sense. Like on the physics stand of it, it's like in movies of that time period, those things would have actually happened normally in the narrative without any framing device excuse or flashback excuse. Like that shit just would have happened normally. Like, I mean, Rookie of the Year is literally about something that could never happen, right? Or like any of that crazy stuff. This movie is doing that same stuff, but it's giving this like out. It's like the reason it's silly. It's like how a child would have experienced it. Like Jamie
to their
would have experienced it.
It's premise specific. Yes.
Right. It's very, but I'm saying it's like, it's almost doing what that time period asked for, but giving you this reason why it actually has substance.
Yeah.
And it's not just to be
making
silly.
Making it matter.
Yeah. Right.
And not to jump, I'm just going to move this up a little bit, but the framing device is sort of there to allow it to do that in some ways, because it allows it to do that, but then bring it back to reality. So we can all say this wasn't some crazy story. Like without the framing device, in some ways, you'd be forced to take this in a weird sort of way literally, but there's a way that we can take the exaggeration but actually feel there's truth to it because of the framing device. Does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does.
It's
There is
the-
a world. There is a world without the framing device where you can just leave it to the audience,
Right.
Yeah.
and then we
Yes.
get that the dog would become real, and it was all like. I think the audience is smart enough to understand that, but I think what Jamie's saying makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The framing device allows it way more.
It's the
Right.
juxtaposition between the adult perspective being nostalgic
Yes.
Yeah,
about the experience and the kids' perspective we're seeing it actually happen then allows us to bridge the gap, and
Also, it's
feel it.
relatable in that whenever you tell stories about your past, you embellish.
It
Yes.
is mythic.
It's
Yes.
a myth in your own life, like it
Yes.
was always the
The
craziest thing that ever
dog it's
happened.
big fish, man.
Well,
Yeah, it's big fish, right?
you
Big
know what?
fish.
You know what else came to mind watching this, which I think had a little bit better voiceover in some ways. Like I think this is the Wonder Years. Did you ever watch the Wonder Years?
Of
as a kid?
course.
Okay.
Yes.
Come on, man.
I can never remember when that came out. Like if that was in your guys' ballpark or not.
Well, I mean,
Um,
Christmas Story, Wonder Years,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
But this almost feels like the Wonder Years. Like
Right.
you could almost get a running commentary going on this a little bit more. The funny thing about the framing device and the narration in this is it is very underwritten, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean they do not like make jokes or you know what I mean. It's very much like some
It's very
straightforward.
dry. Yeah.
it's
dry
sincere
narration.
and dry.
Sincere. Yes.
Yeah, it's sincere,
Yes.
right?
And Bob,
It's
you
not
said-
Robert Downey Jr. in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
and it's
right?
it's the director, right? Is that what you? That's
Yeah,
what you
it's
said? Yeah.
David Mickey Evans, which is very weird.
It's weird.
Yes.
It's
It's
But
weird.
it is
it's
his
totally
it is
weird.
inspired by his life.
It's his life, though. Yeah.
I mean, one tidbit that I didn't mention in these factoids. So Squints was based on a real kid that he was friends with that was one of the gang that they called Squints. And that guy was so similar to him. It was so him that guy sued 20th Century
Right,
Fox
I heard this.
for invasion of privacy and exploitation of his likeness.
Did he win?
Because he lost,
He
but
lost.
because it was so true to life, like he
Yeah.
captured it so authentically that the
You
guy
know what's
was like,
funny is
I
that if
wasn't a big dork.
It's
It's
the
funny if
Cosmo
that-
Kramer effect or whatever.
right,
Yeah.
but if he didn't sue, no one would know.
Yeah, that's true.
But he
That's
probably
true.
just wanted money.
He
I would
wanted
assume.
money. He just
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
money.
yeah.
Absolutely.
He was
No,
like, "You're
but,
stealing my likeness.
Also,
I need a
Squints-
piece of that."
Squints is not a dork in this movie. He has
He's
friends.
awesome.
Right, he's playing baseball. He has lots
Except
of
for
friends.
the Wendy shit, which ages horrendously, but whatever.
I don't actually think it does because they're kids.
They're kids. Yeah.
They're
One
kids.
thing I didn't mention was
Yeah.
and then we'll get back to the talking points. I recently had jury duty, and it was speaking to all the timelessness that we've been talking about and how well it does that. I was really interested to see. This was the movie they played while we were waiting. So super stressful.
Wow.
Yeah, they played this. And this
Man,
was
last
in,
time I got Hitch.
Hitch.
Will-
Oh my
Will
god.
Smith, Hitch.
I guess they can't play The Firm.
Yeah, they can't.
Yeah, they can't play the firm.
Can you imagine? Oh my gosh.
Few Good Men.
God. But I was so you're surrounded by just like a super variety of people of all walks of life, and this movie played so well to that crowd of random adults who were like really stressed out and pissed off to be there, except for the Wendy stuff. But
It's almost like they're using nostalgia to make you not miserable.
to make you just it's gonna be okay. Enjoy the Sandlot.
Enjoy the
Better
comfort of the
times.
Sandlot.
But the reason I put the framing device here is I think it's a great example of how to do a framing device right, because it's really hard to do a framing device, in my opinion. And a lot of the scripts I'm sent from aspiring screenwriters, they do a framing device, but it's just so mishandled and so poorly constructed, and mainly it's just kind of half-assed, really. And I have like a litmus test that I've grown over the 8 years that I've been helping aspiring screenwriters do framing devices to try to help people do a framing device right. And I think that this movie hits all of these well, which is it's cohesive. as opposed to being wholly unrelated to the movie we're seeing it call back to.
Right.
It enhances the rest of the story as opposed to adding nothing to it. And we just talked about like the nostalgic callback, the thematic, which we'll get to. And I think everything about how the framing device is handled enhances what we're seeing. It's consistently used as opposed to like a lot of framing devices I'm sent. It's a bookend, if that. Or the weird thing Jamie, I don't know if you encounter this, but a lot of aspiring screenwriters, I actually encounter a framing device that doesn't start till like the midpoint. So it's like we've got this whole movie that happens, and then all of a sudden you flash forward to like now, and then
So like at like 50 minutes, you'd see him walking into the stadium.
Yep.
Right.
I see that, dude. I see that all the time. And then you're like, wait, what? This feels like a different movie. And you're
Who's
like,
this
oh, they're trying to do a framing device. And then it cuts back to the movie we've been watching for an hour. And so, whereas opposed to, so if you're out there and that's your approach to framing device, you need to make it more consistent. So my note is always, you got to start that at the beginning, and then you can still have your midpoint moment as we return to the framing device. And then it tells its own complete story. So many times I get a script sent with a framing device that doesn't have a story. So it's just like there. It's just like, it's like a flat line, and nothing happens in the framing device to earn its place. And this one definitely tells the story, right? He comes into the stadium, he's being nostalgic, then he's calling the game, and then Benny steals home, and Jamie says he was out, but apparently they win. But it tells a complete story.
It tells a story, and also it's efficient.
Yes.
There's no fat on this framing device at all. It's very efficient.
Yes. And then the last one is it's thematic. And this is usually the one that's missing most from framing devices. Really, I feel like a framing device should be the lesson, right? That you're trying to convey to the audience through the outside story. And this one's definitely thematic. I mean, that's where we hear that line. What is that line? They never kept score. They never chose sides. They never even stopped playing the game. It just went on forever. Every day they picked up where they left off. It was like an endless dream game. Imagine if we didn't have that. And the only way we can get that is through the framing device. So yeah. So I think this one, I think if you're out there and you got a framing device that's not working, or you want to do a framing device, this is a great Disney level. We always talk about how the Disney level movies are great teaching movies and easy to understand how to do it right. And I think this one like just has a great, easy to understand and easy to learn from framing device.
So I'm going to tell you, and this has nothing to do, I think everything you said is right. Now I'm going to give you some pet peeves about framing devices in general. Has nothing to do with screenwriting. But these this is just me, old man on my lawn ranting.
Old man Nash.
Old man Nash. So first of all, did League of Their Own have a opening framing device and a closing?
It did.
Okay.
It did.
Yeah. So it reminded me.
We talked about it, right?
We talked about it.
Yeah.
I thought so. I was going to say it reminded me of that, but I can't. But now to say it, I can't remember what the beginning part was.
The beginning isn't as memorable as the ending of League of Their Own.
Yeah.
It really is.
Is it like them going on a trip or something?
It's her packing up to go to
That's
the
what I thought.
reunion
and then
thing.
and then I was like, did I just imagine that was the beginning? So
no.
It's interesting that one has one too. But here's my pet peeve with movies is, and this is only me, because I think like my wife or my friends and stuff love this stuff. I kind of hate when they're like, and then Jimmy became a carpenter. He has a great business now. I'm like, who the hell cares? These are fictional characters. I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Which they actually do in this movie.
They do. So that's one of my pet peeves. So when it clicked in, I was a little irritated because they were also, if they make them funny, then I'm okay with it. But
like Animal House.
With Animal House was the kind of end all and be all to that. To me, it's kind of the last time you can.
Did it create that? I've always wondered where that came from.
It at least created it comedically.
Comedically, okay.
Yeah. But to me, everybody's ripping off Animal House. Now, this one isn't, because they're not trying to be funny. They're trying to do it for motion. Yeah. Honestly, my wife will stay for the credits to see that stuff. So it's important to people. It's just not to me, because I'm like, it just says how disassociated I am from the movie. I'm like, who the hell cares? Let me go home. I don't need to. This is a fictional character. I don't care that he has 3 kids and lives in a house. I don't care.
What happened to Timmy and Tommy, man?
Yeah, no, but I would push back. I would push back on it for this movie specifically because I think the narration is so good and the
I
framing device and everything. I actually care how
I agree
the
with
game ending one day is something I actually care about, and I like the
yeah.
way this handles it.
I agree that this movie is that's why I'm saying divorced from this movie because I think you're
Okay,
right.
okay, oh, okay.
I actually think you're right. I think even though my spidey sense clicked in and I was yelling like I don't care that where he ended up. I don't care. I was yelling at the screen because I really don't care that somebody ends up. Oh, and the two brothers became real estate developers or something.
Well, everything, but Jamie, to
care.
be fair,
Yeah,
everything he says about each one of them
Yeah.
relates back to something that happened
To
in the
what
movie.
we saw
yeah,
them
but it always
experience.
does. Yeah, it
It
always
was like
It always does,
foundational.
but it
This
does.
was foundational.
But to me,
their
it's because
future.
he's explaining why the game eventually did end because of
I,
adulthood.
and that's why
adulthood killed
that's-
the endless.
That's
dream.
why
Right.
my trigger did set off. I ultimately understood and got it 100%. I
Right.
totally got it because I do think this is a story about all the friends you grew up with, and it's
Yep.
an
And they
adult
go-
thing, and
yeah.
it's nostalgic, and it's got bookends. Makes total sense. I'm just saying, in general,
And
I
it's
hate
not.
I hate when
yeah.
people tack that on to the end of the movie.
I think one of the
In
reasons I
general.
love the ending
I love
thing with.
getting Jamie passionate.
I know
about
it's great.
I'm going to give you one more thing that this movie does that also
Well, hold on.
doesn't anger me, but kind of
The reason I think this one is very substantive for a kids movie, especially, is because of Bertram. Saying Bertram just got lost into the '60s and no one ever saw him again.
right.
To me, that always stands out at the end because I'm always like, it's just like in the movie admitting this guy did so much drugs he fucking disappeared.
Well,
like, it's kind of fucking dark, right? It's really dark.
Yeah, the original edit
It's
was
honest.
Like he became Charles Manson. You
Right,
know
right.
him as Charles Manson. No, I don't.
But there's like I don't know. To me, that's like signifying the honesty of this movie, the sincerity and honesty. Just
I also, as a wrestling fan, I'm not sure that I bought the Great Hambino. I was like, that's not a gimmick. No, I could see that kid being a wrestler. That kid's great. He could totally be a wrestler, but he wouldn't be something as lame as the.
Go
Great
find his
Hambino.
social media these days. He does a lot of Sandlot jokes.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Patrick Renna. Yeah.
So, and then the other pet peeve I have, again, unrelated to screenwriting or anything, but whenever they change actors, I suddenly am disassociated with the next. Like, I don't care about these two actors playing the people at the baseball game anymore.
Yeah, that's why they used Gina Davis's voice.
Right. And in this one, they did
into the actor's voice.
Yeah, they used his brother.
Which is a good idea, but still I'm disassociated. I'm just like, these are two actors now. I saw the real people and now I have two actors.
It's hard.
It's very hard
but
to pull it off.
It's really just one guy because you got the framing device sets up, Smalls.
Yes.
So you still have that connection to Smalls at least.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
they used his brother. What do you want? They didn't have AI.
I mean, it would have been cheesy, but you could have had like Benny the kid waving from the field.
You could have had like a fade or something, and he turns into.
If
Benny.
it was AI, I'd be disassociated too.
Right.
It's just one of those.
I don't want that.
I'm just saying, this is one of those things to me that
it's tough
for me. I'm always like, when I'm monitoring my emotions in the moment, I check out for a second. I'm like,
it takes you out.
Does this guy look like him? Not really. He wouldn't look like that. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Instead of like, those memories, this great time. They're still friends. I'm not thinking that anymore. I'm thinking about, who is this guy? Is he famous? No, he's not famous. I don't know him from anywhere. Who is this guy down here? I don't know. I don't know who this guy. That's what I'm thinking. So,
look, they got his brother. What do you want? I don't know.
They did the best. They tried.
Not at all a criticism of this movie. I think it all works for the screen.
We're not saying he's bad. He did a good. It's a little part, but he did fine.
Yeah.
He just gives a thumbs up.
And then I'm like, is this the guy that directed the movie? Is this him? Is this real life? I'm starting to think that too. Now, this movie
almost feels like if David Mickey Evans was famous, he would have just played the Dalt Smalls.
Yeah,
probably.
It feels like a movie that it does kind of trick you. Like, if I didn't already know the history, I might have been tricked to thinking this was a real life thing.
Like the player, Benny was real.
Yeah, I would have been
Benny
like,
Jet.
They would have kind of got me, and I would have had to Google, is this a true story? And then I would see it wasn't really and stuff. But at least in the moment, I would have been tricked. And I think the movie does a good job of playing it straight to the point where maybe I'd be tricked. So anyway, that's my rant on. But the one thing
How
always
about this?
gets me of
How
when
about
they
this? Say on the page though,
yeah.
without the actor change, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, and well crafted.
Look,
Does that help at all?
I'm even going to go further than that and say people love when you say, and then 10 years ago he became an ice cream man. They love that. I don't know why. I'm not part of that club. I don't love it. But most people love that. I know people that like I'll turn that off and my wife will be, wait a minute, I need to find out what happened 2 years later to this fictional character that we'll never see again in another movie. I
To
need
be
to
fair,
know
there
if
is a
they
Sandlot too, Jamie.
yeah, I need to know if they became a father of 3. Anyway.
I've never heard anyone complain about that specific thing before in my entire life, so that's an interesting complaint. I'll say that.
That's why I had to bring it up because I
When
know
That's
I'm the
pretty
only
funny.
Maybe
Yeah.
my script, I'll say, watch out at the end. It has,
this is
has
more
your thing.
Because I kind of dig it, but
yeah.
usually they do it with text.
Yeah.
Usually it's just text.
This is more the kind of material you'll get from my stand-up comedy route set. So
Yeah.
if you're into that, this is what you'll hear.
Do you juggle at that set too, Jamie?
You know what?
Only when they don't laugh, which is all the time. So yeah.
I'm trying this whole time. I've been trying to think of a movie that's not a comedy that does this thing and does it with shots of people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can't count like Goodfellas. It fades out and then gives you what happened afterward with just text. That doesn't count as the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like a follow up to what happened. Yeah, they're still in prison or whatever.
Follow-ups, yeah.
But like showing people and saying what happened to the fictional characters, not many non-comedies do that.
It feels to me there's a whiff of pretentiousness in the non-comedies that do it.
But how many can you think of that do it?
Trust me, I've seen them. I can't think of them off the top of but they
probably
do it.
come across his desk too.
They do it. They do.
Okay.
But
I have to think though.
They do
everyone I'm thinking of is the comedy.
But again, people like it. It's just me. It's just me. People like it. So it's not. This isn't.
You know what? I
meant
just
to be
watched recently that did it was Little Nicky. I watched Little Nicky does it. But that's a thing where it's like it's just an editing joke. They were like they got to the end. They're like, we can just throw this text on, still shots, and it
Get
works.
some more jokes out of it. Yeah.
Right? It's just jokes.
I mean, it's kind of like the other thing I always roll my eyes at is when comedies do like they make like a dance number that they edited over a period of time through the movie. Like they actually took time every day on set to add a piece.
Me, Myself, and Irene.
Yeah, and
Audio Virgin.
To me, I'm always like,
Virgin, right?
I'm always like, really? They did this? And I just think of the logistics.
But come on, the fact that they had the forethought to like take that time throughout the production to do it.
You know, in the great movies, it doesn't bother me. What bothers me is when the movie's really bad and like straight to streaming, and they did it, and I'm like, no, you're not Will Ferrell and Steve Carell, and no. You know, and I'm.
Can we do a whole episode about like credit stuff, which has nothing to do with writing? It's just all outtakes.
I'm trying to think of other credit things I hate. I mean, I'm not a big fan of post-credit sequences. I gotta pee. I can't wait.
Go ahead, go pee.
Mind my bladder.
I'll cut it. Just go.
No.
Oh, you don't actually have to.
Jamie's talking about when he's in the theater.
I thought Jamie actually saying you had to pee.
Keep that shit in, Bob.
Totally. It's my fault.
I'm somebody that'll hold my bladder through the entire movie, no matter how big the soda is. But just let me go. Don't make me wait to watch all those credits, please.
Okay, but sometimes the outtakes are fucking incredible. Like the ending of Talladega Nights, those outtakes are priceless, man.
So I'm okay with that. I don't like the ones that save it, like the Marvel movies that save it to the very end. Give it to me after like a quick bump of credits, and then give it to me, you know.
Yeah.
Come on, we all know the game. It's not a big secret anymore, like it was the first time. Like, oh, they snuck something in. Yeah, because everybody sneaks something at the end of the credits. Ding dongs. Just put it in the front.
I mean, I would say like 1 out of every 4 scripts I'm sent from aspiring writers even puts in the end credits.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Jesus.
Me too.
Oh, totally, Bob. It's normal.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they have the next franchise.
Yes.
Myself included. I mean,
we're
fuck.
gonna move on. We're gonna move on. But anyone that's interested in this topic, one of my favorite YouTubers of all time, Patrick Willems, just released a video about the toxicity of end credit scenes.
Oh,
Check that
that's
out.
great.
I highly recommend the video.
I am gonna have to check that out.
It's real. I'll send it to you, Jamie.
Okay.
But we need to move on.
Yes.
We need to move on. So let's talk about shifting to Benny as the protagonist, because this is where the movie is odd. If I had to say the one thing that's truly odd about it, but it works.
I put this on there, and now I have nothing other than to talk about why does it work? What is it about the writing, about the story, about the construction, about the thing as a whole? Because I think it has something to do with the whole as to why this works.
One
so
nugget.
Do you want to put it in a context just for anyone who isn't like understanding what we're saying?
Sure, yeah.
It's like when Benny has the dream and we suddenly are detached from Smalls. It's the first time in the movie. And I mean, I didn't do the timestamp, but it's got to be like 75 minutes.
Our POV is Smalls the entire time. The framing
the
device
entire
is Smalls.
It goes back to story DNA in some ways. Hero, goal, obstacle, stakes. If you identify the hero as Smalls for the log line, a boy finds these new friends and becomes this person, blah, blah, blah. He's the hero. If then you suddenly have a new hero, that's a shifting protagonist. And
that's,
And some movies, like examples of that would be like, honestly, everything's horror movie for me. So The Shining is an example. It's like Jack is the protagonist, and then suddenly it shifts, and Wendy, his wife, is the protagonist. She's trying to survive the monster. And there are other movies that do.
Yeah. So why? And then for the entire third, if we want to call it a third act, I mean, we didn't break it down as to a 3-act structure, but where they are locked in to a goal of getting the ball back, and then we have our classic story DNA, which is we've got the goal is to get the ball back. We got a deadline before his stepdad gets back home. We've got the obstacle is the beast, and we've got stakes is they think they might die. And you got the stakes of like my stepdad is gonna kill me. But like, Benny becomes the hero.
Here's what makes it even weirder is that Small's emotional arc is over.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to. There's no like pursuit with the ball that has to teach Smalls anything left as far as this movie's concerned. Like, he has friends, he's in it, he accomplished everything his mom set him out to. Completely.
It becomes basically about Benny, the legend of Benny, right?
Now, Jimmy, one thing I want to say about this thing, why does it work? The answer to that is there's a lot of answers, but I also feel like it's a slight editing timing issue thing that is the reason it works. It's because the narration introduces us to the fact that he's like
set up payoff.
Yeah, well, he's an omniscient narrator who also knows fully about what Benny went through. So it's like while we are switching to Benny as the protagonist, the movie sets it up it's very short and a very like 2 lines that this is also something that I have been completely informed about and know about, and it's part of my story. But here we go with Benny. He's like, Benny was having his own dream that night. That one line takes us into it. And it's like, that's why there's a forgiveness to how weird this is of a switch.
And I think the fact that he's talking specifically to Babe, which makes it very intimate and cohesive with everything else that's happened before and what their goal is. They're somehow, if it was like some weird ass dream, like some psychedelic bullshit, and it had nothing to do with baseball, it wouldn't work. But the fact that it's Babe Ruth he's talking to, like telling him how to get the ball back.
It's almost like the narrator is giving us permission to give it over to Benny temporarily.
Yes, passing the baton.
It's like, and he's gonna take it back, but he's like, here it is, and he becomes an observer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what's the Aragorn comparison you made? Do it, Bob.
I wasn't even gonna bring that up.
Do
I
it.
said to Jamie and Jimmy that the weird thing in my brain that came up was that I thought of Lord of the Rings when I was watching this, and I was like, this is Lord of the Rings if Aragorn destroyed the ring instead of Frodo. Benny's Aragorn, the best warrior of the land, destined for greatness. The whole movie is every if you really watch Lord of the Rings, everyone in that universe is like, no, this guy is destined to be the king. He's destined for greatness. Benny is the same thing. They all know he's the best. Even the rival team knows he's the fucking best.
They even
right?
mention how good he is. The rival team's like, Benny.
And if it wasn't for Benny literally helping Smalls along on his journey, literally, if without Benny, there's no movie.
Yeah.
Smalls stays in his room with his erector set and becomes the loser he always thinks he was.
Benny absolutely is the Ark of Awesome. He's the agent of change.
For some reason, that's what clicked off my brain. I was like, Benny's the Aragorn of this fucking movie.
I love it, Bob.
Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of the king in the end, right?
Yeah.
He became a professional baseball player, which while all those kids, much to Jamie's chagrin, went off and had different lives. If you told those kids when they were kids that Benny was going to be a major leaguer, that would be like saying this guy's going to be the king.
Yep.
He's going to be. He made it.
The closest thing we'll ever come to knowing Babe.
Right. It's like he just played in the major leagues. That's the biggest thing.
In real life, he would have been the roofer. He would have.
Yeah, probably.
Would have ended horribly. He would have peaked. He would have peaked.
Hey, for all we know, that one moment at the end of the movie is the best play he ever had, and he sucked as a baseball player.
God.
Right, exactly.
But
anyway,
I think what's interesting is how unconventional this is. Like,
yes,
if
it is.
this came across my desk, I would be like, proceed with caution, because I don't know how well received that would be from people who have the power to say no to your script, and I don't know what we can learn about it, but
well, I mean, it would be unrealistic. Not that it's about realism, but Smalls couldn't have had this dream,
right?
He doesn't look
Smalls
up.
Couldn't have done the things that Benny
Smalls
did.
doesn't look up to Babe as a mythic figure,
right? He doesn't even know who he is.
He doesn't even know who he fucking is. So it had to be someone. Benny's almost constructed from the very beginning to have this task. Because he's the myth. Benny's part of the myth, right?
Yeah.
There is something weird to have this is one of the things I knock people for when I consult, but to have a framing device, but then have a dream within the framing device. That's a really weird thing to do.
It does multiple weird things. Yeah.
Like that's, I see that all the time, or not all the time, but I see it.
I think why it works is in that respect, Jamie, because I was thinking about putting that on the list, but thanks for bringing it up. Is they established this like we've talked about the mythical. There's like an absurdity tone to the kid's perspective, and it's like now that we're in Benny's perspective, somehow that absurdity tracks. Like we're talking to fucking the ghost of Babe Ruth. It's okay because we just saw a monster dog that's like 10 feet tall.
Right.
It's just weird because like the way you're supposed to sit back and frame this in your mind is like, hey, let me tell you the story about me and my childhood. And then all of a sudden I said, Jimmy had a dream about Babe Ruth. And it's like, what?
It shouldn't work.
Let me tell you about Jimmy's dream.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
So,
it's
also,
like,
I don't know if this helps, but the one factoid I learned for this episode was that David Mickey Evans wrote this movie because he was bullied as a kid.
Yes. Yeah.
And he wanted to turn the bullies of his childhood into heroes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so Benny's like the ultimate. He turned Benny into a hero. I mean, that would have been the guy, I guess, who bullied the shit out of him when he was a kid. But instead, he's the guy who pulled him out of the muck and brought him there. And everything.
I heard when his brother got bit by the dog, like the other kids, like kind of joked and ridiculed him while he was getting mauled by the dog. I mean, that's how much it was. But yeah, he's basically said like the Bennies were the bullies.
This is David Mickey Evans doing like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah,
he's rewriting history. He's rewriting his own history as opposed to popular history.
Speaking of this, kind of on the topic, one thing I wanted to mention that popped into my head when I was watching this movie, and again, very general kind of piece of advice or something that more I found as instructive. So rite of passage movie. What I started to think of was a lot of rite of passage movies at their heart have the person who changed my life in that movie, the person who changed my way of thinking. And Benny's that in this. Like Benny's this weird character. He's got skills. He's got hats in his back pocket. He's got the super shoes. He
does have the super shoes.
Which were real. They were real.
He's like he's like perfect in some ways. Like he's empathetic. He's like nice to, like he's hitting the ball to people.
He gets his own sort of praise of the killer.
Yeah.
Remember, he says like Benny would have. We're all actual
praise
kids.
For the hero.
Benny would have played baseball all day, all night. To him, it was life.
It's almost like a Meet the Prophet kind of character. Like he really is that. He's like this almost saintly, godlike, magical, mythical character that shows up in these kids' life, and especially this one kid. And when I started to think about rite of passage stories, I almost think that if you're writing one, you need to figure out who the person who changed the life was. And maybe they're not always like godly or saintly or something like that. But, I started to think about movies like Almost Famous or Adventureland kind of comes to mind. Or even Stand By Me, Karate Kid, maybe even in a sort of rite of passage-y sort of way. One of the ones from when I was a kid that I really liked was My Favorite Year. But these are kind of rite of passage stories, or some of them are truly rite of passage. They all have like this oddball character that changed somebody's life, that comes into their life for some period of time and makes them look at things sort of differently, or kind of rescues them from the muck or the boredom or something like that.
The wrong way.
Yeah. And I almost think it's like a half-man kind of character for this genre.
Yeah.
I think there's something there that I'd have to watch every rite of passage movie to identify like the traits and the types and the this and the that. But I do think there's something to it. I think there's something to it.
The half-man trope that we have all talked about, I was thinking about while watching this too, and I was like, Squints is obviously the obvious half-man in this movie, right? Like if you had to point to one, he's the kind of the obvious one. But then I was like, no, the entire gang is. They're of the dog.
The dog.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Of the dog story, Squints is the half man. But I was also like, well, Benny's kind of the Quint.
Yes.
Of the movie, right? Yeah, he's the Quint of the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's a very odd thing.
So it's really interesting how often we're bringing up horror movies. And this, but I guess
really
since the Beast is a monster, it makes sense that
every time we've comped something, it's been mostly horror. It's kind of nuts.
I was trying to come up with some new, like almost not genre, but I called it the get in, get out, stay alive genre. And I was like, this is kind of a get in, get out, stay alive genre. But I couldn't really think of too many other movies besides like Don't Breathe or something.
Give
like
it
that.
time, man. You're going to figure it out.
I was like, there's probably like 20 other movies that's like, and that's kind of what this devolves into. I mean,
yeah, just jumping in the yard.
You know what it is? Zack Snyder's zombie movie. What was that? Zombie World?
Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yep. Something like that.
Not to take it back one topic, but it's weird too to have the character that is the person that changed my life, and then it feels like this movie has Benny is the person who changed Smalls' life, but then it does feel like Babe Ruth is the person that changed Benny's life.
Yes,
it's such an odd thing. It's like it's almost like
spirit.
It's like Benny had a movie, and it happens during this movie that is another person's movie.
Maybe this is a prequel to Field of Dreams when all the ghosts come out.
Right.
You know, Benny ends up there.
I mean, it does work. We can't. Obviously, it works for people.
It does work. That's why
it works for me.
Fascinating about it. It shouldn't work,
but under a microscope, it's just kind of goes against a lot of stuff.
Yes,
because like I would think like Smalls should be the one going over that fence.
Yeah.
And stuff,
I mean,
but no, it's not.
If you're writing a script, and I mean, one of the most common notes I make is I call it protagonist imbalance, which is if your main character takes a back seat in their own story, it usually doesn't work. And Smalls absolutely takes a backseat for the climax of this movie for the last.
But it feels like the movie is it's always been working toward it that
toward
Benny would do
the
it.
birth of the legend.
Benny has
of
been
Benny,
Benny
the
has been
Jet.
built up this entire movie.
Yes.
He's the only guy that could ever have done this.
And Bob, you know what it made me reminded me of? We talk about a lot with the mini plot stories, like Fableman's that we've referenced. Is destiny is at play. Mini plots usually have destiny at play, and I was like, oh, I think it works because destiny is at play, and we feel that, right?
You can't help but feel that Benny's destined for greatness.
I think there's something else weird at play here. I think this is a movie where this is a guy telling the story about his friends, and his character is almost a nothing character. Like there's not a lot to it.
He's an everyman for sure.
And we become him, and we want to watch these friends that we remember do their great friend things. Mm-hmm. So instead of him kissing the girl or him saving the ball or him, he's watching his friends do that. And we are surrogately watching these people are now our friends do the same thing. I think that's what's going on to an extent.
And it's satisfying to watch Benny become Benny the Jet.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Benny.
Yeah. We want to see.
That's good. I like that, Jamie.
No, also, there's people like having someone in their life to look up to.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's nostalgic. You had that friend that you kind of like idolized.
Yeah.
That's part of this whole childhood. The thing Jamie said before is that it's nostalgic for childhood.
Yeah.
You always have the friend who you think is cooler than everybody.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know?
Mine usually revolved around sports. Like there was one guy that was just faster than everybody, and he could break dance or whatever. You know? And he just could do every cool thing I couldn't do.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
For me, it was like as a kid, it was like, this is the dude that's the best at Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Like nobody is as good as Mortal Kombat as Jim is. You know, like he's a fucking man when it comes to Mortal Kombat. You know, and that's the Benny of Mortal Kombat. So yeah, no, I think it works. It's just it's an odd way to. I don't know if it's a lesson, Jimmy, to answer your ultimate question here, because it could get dangerous.
It could get dangerous.
But hey, take some swings.
I mean, that's the thing you have to ask yourself about a movie like this that's beloved and stuff like that. It goes on forever and ever. How many of these are there?
Not many.
One.
The handoff, story like that.
Yeah.
How many times has this worked?
It's one of one almost. I mean, the comparisons we're talking about, they have slight situational stuff, but they're not really the same thing.
Right.
They're really not. Most of them have plots or something within them. So it really is a one-of-one movie. And I mean, as opposed, it's always dangerous when you start comparing yourself to a one-on-one movie. It's
proceed with caution if you're listening.
It's kind of like when I was coming up and everybody would have in their investor package, well, the Blair Witch made this amount of money. And how many movies made the money since then that made, Paranormal Activity maybe. So there's two in the history that made that much money, But everybody had it in the front page of their deck,
Yep.
Blair Witch made this much. Kind of the same thing in writing. If your thing is, well, I'm doing the exact same thing as the Sandlot, it's like, woo, proceed with caution. It worked one time. It worked one time fabulously, but it worked one time. So just be careful.
It's funny too, like people, if you said to the common person who loves this movie, did you ever realize how odd it is that this happens? They would be like, huh? Like they
wouldn't even know.
It doesn't read to other people as weird at all that Benny takes over the movie. It doesn't. It's not something that reads to anyone not putting it under a microscope.
But to us who deconstruct stories every other week for 8 years, it's very weird.
I don't know if I would have ever really thought about it if it wasn't for the show.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have ever really been like, wait a minute, why does that work? So, yeah. Okay. Comic obsessions.
Yes, we haven't done this one in a while, so I'm excited to do this. And I have them all listed, but if you want to riff on it before I do it, let's go too. But okay, so this is something I learned from Robert McKee's comedy writing seminar in the 90s, man.
Yeah.
And
He wrote it after he watched this movie, actually.
Yeah, right. 1993, he was like, I'm starting the comedy seminar. No, the movie that he broke down in that seminar was A Fish Called Wanda. This is about creating comedy engines for your characters. And so what is a comic obsession? It is when a character has a fixation or they have a behavior that to them is normal, but other characters in the audience feels extreme and completely out of the ordinary. And some examples we've done on the show before: Meg Ryan's Sally's complicated restaurant orders in When Harry Met
Right, yeah.
Sally, Randy's encyclopedic horror movie knowledge in Scream, Ian Malcolm's chaos theory in Jurassic Park. It's like every time the writer wants to make this character funny, they use that comic obsession as the engine for all the jokes. So the Sandlot, I think this is where the script really shines. I think this is why all the characters are so like iconic. So I'm just going to go down the list. Smalls, it's not really an obsession, but I still think it tracks. It feels the same, which is his complete ignorance of baseball and baseball culture is
Right.
what's used to make Smalls funny. Every scene where Smalls is funny, it's because of this. The next one is
like an alien to him. It's completely
he doesn't even know who Babe Ruth is. Ham's excessive trash talking and showboating is absolutely his comic obsession. Every scene, the reason he's funny is for that. Squint's infatuation with Wendy Peppercorn is his comic obsession. Every time he's funny, it's mainly because of that. Benny even has an obsession with baseball. He doesn't really care about anything else except for baseball in every scene. Like, it's 100 degrees. Everybody wants to go to the pool. And he's like, you guys are a bunch of
Who wants to be a panty waist that wears their mama's bra?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Timmy and Tommy's repeating everything.
Right. Yeah.
So every scene, that's why they're funny. Bertram, the Bertram Weeks, the tobacco chewing, they even make a whole scene out of that after that.
Right.
And then his verbal tics. And then he just says yeah. So that's what makes him funny every time. And then the team even has two obsessions, which is the reverence of Babe Ruth, the Sultan of SWAT, the Colossus of Clout. Right. They have a comic obsession with Babe Ruth, and then their collective fear of the Beast is also a comic obsession. So you
missed Squint's comic obsession with the Beast, and just the whole myth of the junkyard
thing. Yeah,
how he thinks. The best joke in this movie is, why didn't you just knock on my door? I would have gotten it for you. That's like the best joke in the movie, and it's because of Squints.
Because of his uncle. Fear, yes.
Yeah.
So that's 11 right there.
Yeah.
So this, it shows that you can do this for everybody if you want, and I don't feel like it's noticeably excessive at all. Like
no.
it wasn't even something that I had even thought was going to be on the talking points. And then when I watched it the second time, I was like, oh shit, there's like comic. When I watched it just for the talking points, it stood out to me so hard. So anyway,
every kid gets their moment.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah,
they do.
They do.
Their comedic moment. Yeah. So if you're out there and you're looking for ways to make your character funny, ask yourself. I didn't go into it, but the Office writers that wrote Good Boys, we once did an episode about Good Boys. If you want to listen to that, we go into the depth, and their exercise that basically helps them figure out the comic obsession is what makes your character funny at the grocery store, what makes your character funny at a wedding, and what makes your character funny at a funeral. And if you can answer, it can be the same answer for all of that. That's how you get to the comic obsession. That's how like the Office writers were doing it. And they're thinking about this in the construction. So I think it's really powerful.
Good Boys probably our least listened to episode.
Least listened to. That's a deep reference there.
Yeah, deep reference, but it's a funny movie. You should watch it.
It is, and well written.
It is. Okay, the MacGyver exercise.
Yeah, I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, this is a bit from long ago.
Yeah, I'm gonna bother Jamie with this one a little bit too.
It's called the MacGruber exercise.
The MacGruber I should call it for the comedy version.
Yeah.
So where this comes from is a lot of times when I'm sent scripts, and in case you're listening and I haven't said the exact bingo card quote, I am a script consultant and I read amateur aspiring screenplays all day. And they all do the same, they typically all do the same things wrong. And so because of this show and because of the way I speak about the craft on social media, I often attract newbies. So people who are like in their first screenplay or their third screenplay. I'm not usually working with people of Jamie's caliber who are professional writers. I'm almost always working with a writer who's just figuring this out. They're just learning.
Right.
And one of the most common things they do is when a character has an obstacle they have to overcome, the tactics they write are like the most generic, boring, uninteresting, basic thing that a person would do to overcome the obstacle. And number one, that means the obstacle is too easy. And number two, that means you haven't honed in on what's special and unique about your character and your premise. And so when I get a script where the tactics are too generic, I give them this exercise. But before I go into the exercise, Jamie has a great example where you talk about Bond and SpongeBob. And can you tell them about that, Jamie?
Yeah, sure. And it's something I usually do to talk about tactics. I like each of your heroes uses different tactics, and the example I like to give is your hero should, because honestly, I teach college students a lot, and sometimes their characters are so flat that if you give them like something to do to overcome an obstacle, it's just very boring and flat and doesn't really show character at all. So the example would be, let's say you have a character locked in a room and there's a guard at the door, a big guard. It's John Cena. John Cena's at the door, and he's not letting him out. How, if you could put different characters in that room, and each character should have their own very unique way of getting out. So if you put SpongeBob in that room, he would have a different way than Batman, who would have a different way from James Bond, who would have a different way from Elle Woods. And it's extreme. They're extreme characters to prove the point, but it's almost to the point like that's what you need to go for. You need a character that has a very distinct personality and traits, that their
set of skills,
a very distinct set of skills that that they will do something very different from the ordinary, average person or someone else. And that's the way you want to think about your characters, is to give them those kind of, give them that kind of psychology, so that they're picking unique choices.
Yeah. And you've said like James Bond will do it one way, where SpongeBob will do it completely different.
Exactly.
So what I challenge people to do is I call it the MacGyver exercise. And for any young listeners who aren't aware, MacGyver was a show where the entire purpose of the show was MacGyver would take like a ballpoint pen that was on him and figure out how to like defuse a bomb using it. And
that's what I'm saying. MacGruber might be actually more relatable
for this
for younger people, because I might know who he is.
He would, yes. So you have to ask yourself, like, what is my character's MacGyver move? What is about them and the situation and the premise that they come up with a tactic to overcome the obstacle that we could only experience in this movie. And we talk about in a lot of episodes something we call the not so secret weapon, which is a MacGyver move. It's like the climactic MacGyver move, like Ripley's loader in Alien, the tank in the oxygen tank in Jaws. But the thing is, your character is going to need to overcome obstacles for the entire movie, not just the big climactic obstacle. So you're going to need to be doing this MacGyver exercise. You're going to need them to have MacGyver moves for the whole movie. It's not just the climax. And so some examples are in Get Out, Chris uses the cotton in the chair he's tied to and plugs his ears to prevent himself from being brainwashed. In Pig, Nicolas Cage's chef character cooks a 3-course meal to escape the situation. In Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter challenges the villain to a dance-off to distract him for them to like overcome the villain. These are all like very specific to these characters and these premises. And The Sandlot is a really instructive, easy to understand what that is. So Smalls using the pulley system and the erector set that we set up in his bedroom is a perfect example of Smalls's MacGyver move. It's definitely the not so secret weapon. But what I love about it that's extra cool is each sequence, when they're trying a new version of that tactic, they're using different pieces of baseball equipment. They're using the catcher's masks on the end of the vacuum ones. They're using the catcher's guards when they're pulling the one over the fence,
over the thing.
Wearing all the catcher's equipment.
The catapult is supposed to be them catching it with their gloves when it goes over.
With the gloves, yeah. So every single one of those, when they're coming up with new MacGyver moves, they're using the baseball equipment and repurposing it in a clever way to like get the ball back, which I think is like very instructive. Like that's what makes it so cool and memorable. And that's the type of thing that I don't see in scripts that I'm sent.
Also funny to go back to what we were just saying. None of those secret weapons work.
They don't work. I love that.
The only secret weapon that works is Benny. He's the not so secret weapon, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's true. Benny the Jet, the legend.
Benny the Jet is, yeah.
So that was all.
And crafting ensembles using comedy archetypes.
All right, this is my book report, and I'm going to quiz you guys on it.
Go for it.
So we've only done this twice. So if you like this, we did this in the Deadpool episode, so check that out.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this in the Wayne's World episodes. This is only the third time we've done this in 134 episodes.
Okay.
So this comes from, and this is another thing when I was watching the movie a second time for, 100th time, but second time in the last 2 days for talking points. This one stood out the second time around. Like, oh my God, I think these are the archetypes. And I think this one is a pure example of comedy character archetypes. So where I got this from was, there's a guy named Steve Kaplan who has 2 books on comedy-centric screenwriting. So they're not just like comedy. It's these 2 books are based on comedy screenwriting tools and techniques. And in the Wayne's World episode, we talked about more than just this. So check that out. And the one book this comes from is Steve Kaplan's Comic Hero's Journey. So he theorizes that all comedies have some version of these 6 archetypes, and together they sort of represent the whole of our shared humanity and human behavior.
Okay.
And so that's where this comes from. And you don't need to have all of these, but you can have, if you have them, it works well. And you can also have more than one of these. I think in the Deadpool and Wayne's World episodes, we tracked more than one of each of these. So I'm going to go down the list and then ask who you guys think is the character in The Sandlot.
Okay.
Okay. The innocent, rookies who haven't been around the block. They're newbies to something important in the story world, so everything needs to be explained to them. Diane in Cheers, Steve Carell in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Mathazar in Galaxy Quest, Dopinder, the cab driver in Deadpool. Who's the innocent in The Sandlot?
Smalls.
Yeah, Small. I mean, it's so easy, right?
Right.
That's why I love this tool, because it's like, holy shit, they absolutely were, whether they were doing this intentionally or not, they were playing with archetypes. So the second one, the voice of reason. They know the truth. They know the lesson, but they're trying to get others to listen to them. This is often the mentor, but sometimes the hero is the voice of reason. Patches O'Houlihan in Dodgeball, Carl Weathers in Happy Gilmore, Agent K in Men in Black, Colossus in Deadpool. Who is the voice of reason in The Sandlot?
Maybe Benny?
I think Benny
think
would be
it's
my
Benny.
answer.
Mom.
Yeah.
I think it's Benny. The mom, James Earl Jones functions like that
the
ultimately.
babe.
The
Yeah.
babe. But I do
Yeah.
think Benny.
I think Benny's the
I think
main one,
Benny
though.
is the
Yeah.
mentor, right?
Am
The
I, am,
voice
I,
of
re-
reason.
am I remembering this right? Is the mom like, hey, you're too smart. You need to go out and play with
And
kids.
have fun.
She
Yeah,
doesn't
she
say you're
says.
too. She
You're
says,
gonna
"I
be a
know you're smart."
egghead.
She doesn't. No, she doesn't say it like negatively. She just says,
Yeah,
"I know."
she says it like endearingly.
Like, yes, you're really smart, but I want you to get dirty and get in some trouble and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
you need to
Yeah.
learn how to be a kid. Yeah.
So it's like a
Um,
Benny and his mom kind of share it a little bit.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
as we say, you can have more than one of these, but it's good to have them.
To Smalls, you could argue that like all the kids at the collective are sort of his mentor a bit.
Correct. I agree. Yes.
You know, people that know how to play ball and have friends are his mentor.
Yes. The third one is the animal. Physical and direct, follows primal urges.
Yeah.
Ed O'Neill in Wayne's World, John Belushi in Animal House, Danny McBride in basically everything he's ever been in, Melissa McCarthy in Bridesmaids. Who's the animal in Sandlot?
Hams.
Ham. Yes.
Yeah.
So once again, we have another archetype.
Right.
The desired. They have the power to transform other characters who desire them. Chris O'Dowd as Officer Rhodes in Bridesmaids. Cassandra in Wayne's World. Sigourney Weaver in Ghostbusters. Mary in There's Something About Mary. Rita in Groundhog Day. Vanessa in Deadpool. Who's the desired in Sandlot?
I mean, there's the girl at the pool.
Yeah, it's Wendy. It's Wendy Peppercorn.
Yeah. Mary Shelton. Great Mary Shelton.
So, I mean, once again, there it is. The trickster. The next one is the trickster, the indispensable comedic archetype, lives by their own rules, draws outside the lines, often in disguise, or takes on a disguise.
Squints, maybe?
I was going to say Squints, right?
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's fucking he pretends to drown.
That's why he sued. He's not that way at all in real life.
Yeah, he's not really like
He's
that.
going to sue our podcast.
He's not a trickster. So, some famous examples of the trickster are Jamie Lee Curtis in Fish Called Wanda, Styles in Teen Wolf, Benjamin in Wayne's World, and sometimes they're the hero, Phil in Groundhog Day, Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire, and most recently the one we did, Deadpool, is the trickster. So it can be the hero. All of these can be the hero. The next one is, and this one I'm not sure of. I have an answer, but I want to see what you guys think. The fool, unintelligent, and that's basically it. Wayne and Garth in Wayne's World, Harold and Lloyd in Dumb and Dumber, Bill and Ted in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Ben Stiller in Tropic Thunder.
A little bit.
Yes. I mean, we already said he's the innocent. I was saying Timmy and Tommy, and the movie even makes a whole scene out of Timmy coming through and being like, I was an idiot. We've been doing this all wrong. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it kind of tracks, but yeah. But the point is, the movie is playing with these, and if you're out there and you're brainstorming, like, I need an ensemble of comedic characters, like, start with these archetypes. The innocent, the voice of reason, the animal, the desire, the trickster, the fool. And you could subvert them, right? You could be like, I want to do a trickster, but I want to subvert it. And studying these is a good way to start it. Or you could combine them, right? I want to do the animal trickster, right? Like, I think this is a really powerful tool.
Squints as the trickster too is like, he's not doing it maliciously. The pool he is, but him telling them all these stories that are obviously fake, he believes them. So he's like an unknowing trickster character.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You know, he's not trying to deceive anyone there.
Yeah, and
when your characters are kids, you can do these so easy.
You can.
Yeah.
I find these things are useful in two ways. One, if you really have no idea who your characters are, but you know there's 5 of them. You know, if you're creating a baseball team and you're starting from scratch and you don't know what to do, this can be a useful tool to help you brainstorm. But the other way is, if you kind of have an idea but it's a little loose, go categorize them, and then you can see if you're redundant with too many characters. Like if you have
that's perfect.
Yeah, if you have 5 of the same character, it's like you're in trouble. Yeah.
I was going to ask Jamie if you use this in your own work. If you do this,
not really. I can't say that I do, but I at one point I bought like a book similar to this. It was like the story archetypes, And I thought it would be very useful, but I just never really, I think I broke it out once and I never really bothered, but I could see it working. I mean,
Yeah.
Also, it's some common sense to it.
Bob, you always say
I know,
that thing, but
I know.
everybody I work with, not everyone, sorry, because I have clients who listen, and I'm not talking about you. But often the people I work with, all of these things that you say, common sense, like there's a lot of people do not have this intuitive storytelling to them. And so these things that come so naturally to cinephiles and people who love movies, they often don't come naturally to people who are sitting down to write a screenplay. And if you, this kind of stuff, when I'm pointing it out, like to people like, oh, if I think you're trying to do this archetype, and then you explain to them like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I didn't even know there was a name for it. So yeah, I it's common sense to the three of us.
I guess I would say this, like, yes, you might not know to enact it in a script, but a good lesson might be for a writer to think about your own life and all your friends.
Yeah.
Everybody that has a bunch of friends knows, like, there's like the movie guy, and then there's the wrestling person, and then there's the person who hates, I don't know, theme parks or something. You know what I mean? Like, everybody has this memorable part of your friend groups. And that seems like a natural thing that would translate into writing. Like, you don't want everyone to be the same. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like, life has variation. It's just, that's why I guess I said that. It's
and
just,
the contrast creates comedy and conflict.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If the odd couple were the same guy, there's no oddness. Thus, it's not a story.
It's not funny.
It's not funny if they're both like being clean. Just make an odd couple, but with 5 people. Right?
Exactly. That's perfect.
Yeah. Just add more people to it. That's the end of our talking points. That's everything. Unless you guys, Jamie, did you want to complain about anything else?
I'm sure there's something, but I can't think.
The Orioles pitching.
Yeah, the Orioles pitching.
No.
I wanted to. I'll say this. This is not a writing thing. I find it supremely fucking weird that Dennis Leary is the dad in this movie.
Yes,
it's such an odd casting if you know Dennis Leary and his work. It's like his most
toned down character.
He doesn't even act. I mean, he's good. It's not like he's bad or anything.
It's kind of like a nothing role too, because he's not in it a lot.
It's a paycheck. It's a paycheck.
It's very weird role to think why he would take this.
It's so subdued.
I would love to know what his opinion of it is, if he's ever even revisited it or anything. But it's just Dennis Leary being on screen in such a sincere, nostalgic, uncynical movie is so weird.
He doesn't have any jokes or anything.
Right. No. He's just an actor. He's a pure acting gig.
He's kind of one note to an extent.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
It's definitely strange. It's definitely a strange role.
Karen Allen's great, but she feels she had, like, there's some personality to her, and she's got something to do. Dennis Leary is just the guy. He's just there, and it's just like, that's Dennis Leary.
Yeah, it is weird.
It's like if you put Chris Rock in the role or something. It's like, what? It's just odd. He's just here to act.
Chris Farley.
He's just here to be functional.
Can you imagine Chris Farley doing that role?
Right. Or Danny McBride.
Right.
Yeah. Imagine Danny McBride just being the dad, but he acts just like that. It's just like so odd.
And you're kind of staring at him like, come on, do the thing. Do the thing. Do it. I want to see it.
Like, Dennis Leary's not smoking a cigarette and screaming. What is happening here?
Yeah, he's not freaking out when the kid stole his baseball.
Right. They didn't even show him getting mad. Right. Yeah.
They should bring
an odd thing.
They should bring him back in the post credits and be like, who cares where these kids landed? Nobody cares. Why are you even watching this? Don't you have a life? Get out of here.
I know. And this is probably like a year away from Demolition Man, which is even weirder.
Right, which is a movie he's bashed in it, but I think like 10 years ago he did an interview where he said it was a piece of shit, and then like he kind of went back on it when he realized how popular Demolition Man is. It's pretty fun. His career in movies is supremely weird, and this is my argument is this is the weirdest of his credits. Like, it's so not him.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
It's weird because it's not weird at all. That's what's
right.
Weird
it's
about
so
it, right?
norm. It's normcore Dennis Leary.
Yeah,
it's fucking just odd placement of an actor. Totally does a great job, not insulting the performance. It doesn't ruin the movie. It's just
Not at all.
as I get older, I'm always like, it's so weird Dennis Leary's in this fucking movie. Just it's a casting that just makes me go, huh?
And later on in his career, he probably did like straight up dramatic things. They were just,
Yeah.
but they were like important roles. They weren't just like the vanilla 2-dimensional dad who doesn't have time for the kid. You know what
Who
I mean?
likes baseball and like leaves the movie like halfway through and just
He's almost like a prop. You know, that's almost what he is. You know, and
also I guess when this came out, arguably is he the most famous actor in the movie?
Karen
Allen,
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones. You're right. Never mind. I'll shut up. Yeah, but he's at least top 2 or 3 of fame.
He's top 3. Yeah,
I would say I don't know.
Karen Allen was never a
yeah.
lead.
I would say you could argue he was hotter in the filmic sense, you know, at that point than Karen Allen. You know, because she didn't do a ton of movies besides. I mean, you know, Raiders my favorite movie, and I love her in that. But she didn't do a ton of movies after that.
She's endearing in this movie. I like her performance in this movie.
She should have been in more movies like this.
I wish. Yeah.
It's a thankless role, but she's good in it.
She's given nothing to do, but somehow just she comes out and it like the temperature goes up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because she's so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, is there anything you guys want to plug?
I'll just say, if you have any questions, we didn't get to one this time. But if you have any questions about this episode, about any episode, about anything really, send it to writersblockbusterspodcast@gmail.com.
Cool.
And I will say nothing to plug. So I'll do my once every few months plug for that. If you listen to the show, if you're new to it, if you're not new, we could use a lot of shares, a lot of likes, a lot of reviews. If you have any time at all, just go, reshare the podcast. It's really hard to get engagement these days. And we're always hoping new people will check it out, will find it and listen to all the backlog of episodes. So if you get a chance and you made it this far, go give us a shout out somewhere if you could. We're not asking for your money unless you want to visit Bob's Patreon or buy his t-shirts.
Sure.
We'll take that. But we will ask if you could just spend like 2 seconds right now and give us a shout out or give us a retweet or give us a review. And we would love that. So appreciate you all. That's my plug for the week.
No, I mean,
especially the Apple podcast. I mean, it really helps the discoverability. I can't tell you how many times people have said it just popped up on my Apple podcast when I was looking for screenwriting, and that's how I found it. So
numbers and all that stuff is boring these days to talk about. But I will say, me and Jimmy have a constant, ongoing side discussion in our brains, I think, about how useless our feeds have become. So when Jamie is asking for that passionately, it's sort of like in a world where I don't even know how to share stuff anymore. So like just
anything helps.
Anything helps. It's just not because nothing kind of makes sense anymore as far as social media goes. So like, anything seriously helps. Even just like reacting to something.
But Apple has changed the way discoverability happens. It used to be that you could, when you typed in a topic, it wouldn't show individual episodes. So like if someone types in, for instance, like one of the reasons that our Jaws episode is the most listened to, if you type in Jaws now in Apple Podcast search, our episode will come up, not just a Jaws centric podcast. So people can search an individual topic and they're finding the show because someone recently reviewed our show. And so it put it up there in the discoverability. So it really does help. So
do it for all your favorite shows, not just us.
Not just us. Yeah.
If that's how you help people now, is really just say something. Like I said, even a love react. Don't scroll past. Just waste your fucking click, please. Give us the click if you want to. Anyway, that's good. Thank you, Jamie, for expressing that.
Sure.
Should we tell everyone what's next, since we usually don't know when we're recording?
Yeah, if you want, sure.
Yeah, we're doing Alien 3, the theatrical cut. So that's coming next. I'm
Alien
excited
3.
about that.
It's gonna be it's an interesting discussion.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. That's everything.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Hey, this is Bob Rose, and thank you for listening to Writers Blockbusters. If you'd like to financially support the show, please consider joining my Patreon. I've been producing the podcast for several years completely out of pocket, and I'd like to keep producing it ad-free and no longer at a loss. If you'd like to help, head on over to patreon.com/Bob Rose Sucks. That's right, Bob Rose Sucks. And if you want the one and only Jimmy George to help polish up that writing project you're kind of struggling with, head on over to scriptbutcher.com. As a listener, you already know he's the best there is, scriptbutcher.com. You can also support the show by simply sharing it or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate both. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode.